to establish the root cause of the accident. This morning, the Minister of Transport will release the findings of the inquiry and together with the regulator answer questions relating to the findings. Joining the Minister this morning is the CEO of the Railway Safety Regulator, Mr. Nkululeko Poya, Chairperson of the Board of Inquiry, Mrs. Baitseng, and Mr. Tandukolo Fumbata, Head of Investigations at the Railway Safety Regulator. Before we get to the findings, I am going to hand over to the regulator to give background into the technical processes followed to arrive at the findings. My name is Ishmael Mnisi and I'll be program directing today's media briefing. Over to you, Mr. Poya.
Thank you very much, Ishmael. Minister, just to give a bit of a background in terms of the process. What normally happens, we've got different levels of investigations that we conduct within the organization. The Board of Inquiry being the highest level, which is then run through an independent process, which we support as a regulator. After the 28th of April, when the incident took place, the Minister instructed us and required us to be able to conduct a Board of Inquiry in terms of Section 38(4) of the Railway Safety Regulator Act. And since that process, then we appointed an independent team of a legal firm, and we also appointed technical experts on rolling stock, professional engineers, on rolling stock, signaling, train technology, and also a human factor specialist. That team formed the actual team of the Board of Inquiry in the panel. And through that process, there was an inspection that was conducted for the Board of Inquiry itself to understand what took place on that day. Also, what they also took into consideration was submission in terms of documentation that was forwarded to them. They also conducted interviews with affected parties or people they felt they needed clarity from to be able to understand what happened on that fatal day. Also, that included PRASA's employees. It also included management within the passenger rail agency. Now, that was the process that was actually followed to be able to arrive. And obviously, the Board of Inquiry then conducted and finalized its particular report to take note and be able to outline what they wanted. And this is the report that we have today.
Thank you, Mr. Poya. We'll now hand over to the Minister to give us the report. And before the Minister gives us the report, I would like to recognize as well Mr. JD from our acting DDG Rail, and also the representation of PRASA, which is in our midst today. Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Ishmael. And taking into consideration the fact that protocol has already been observed, I will go straight into the statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, on the 28th of April 2015, at around 7:10 in the morning, the Business Express train number 1602 collided with the rear end of Metroplus Express train number 0600. The collision occurred at Denver Station, which is situated in the southeastern part of Johannesburg, here in Gauteng. Subsequent to this PRASA rail collision of the 28th April 2015, I directed that the Railway Safety Regulator, the RSR, in terms of Section 38(4) of the National Rail Safety Regulator Act number 16 of 2002, as amended, which is the NRSR Act, to investigate the occurrence with the objective of preventing similar occurrences in the future. In response to my directive, the RSR instituted an independent Board of Inquiry chaired by a legal practitioner and assisted by various railway industry experts. The chairperson of the BOI is sitting next to me. The purpose of today's media conference is to report back to the citizens of South Africa, and more specifically, our valued commuters, about the findings of the BOI. In order to provide context to the collision, it is important to reflect on the overall state of railway safety in South Africa, or in the South African railways environment. In terms of the 5 high-frequency types of operational occurrences, namely collisions between trains on a running line, collisions between trains and obstacles on a running line, derailment on a running line, level crossing incidents where people are struck by trains, and platform-train interface occurrences. There has been a 6% increase in the current financial year ending Q3 in comparison to the same time the previous year. The increase is mainly due to an increase in the number of collisions with obstacles, mainline derailments, and platform train occurrences. In total, 299 fatalities have been recorded for the current year to date in terms of the high focus areas. In terms of the high focus areas, like I indicated, which is 2% decline in comparison to the 304 people who lost their lives over the same period during 2014. The main reason contributing to deaths on our railway lines remains people who are struck by passing trains when they are walking along or crossing the tracks. In this category, we have noted a decline of 10% from the 2014-15 period. There's been a slight decline in the number of level crossing accidents involving vehicles, from 63 in the previous period to 51 during the current financial year. It is encouraging to note that the number of collisions between trains declined by 44% from the previous period. During the current year, 5 mainline collisions occurred between trains up to the period of 31 December 2015, in comparison to 9 collisions for the previous period ending the 31st of December 2014. However, although the number of train-on-train collisions declined, collisions such as the Denver collision, where 2 passenger trains collided, have very serious consequences in terms of deaths and injuries to those who are traveling on the trains. During the year to date, 3 people lost their lives and 624 people were injured in only 5 occurrences. Ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the background on the Denver station collision, as a result of the collision between the 2 passenger trains at the Denver station, there were 240 injuries reported from both trains. We wish the injured well, and we will continue addressing their queries. And I want to appreciate the interventions through PRASA for the work they're doing to support those of our people who are injured in such incidences. The driver of the Business Express train 1602 was seriously injured and is reported to be still recuperating from her injuries. We wish her a speedy recovery and strength for her and her family. The Metro security guard in Metro Plus Express train number 0600 sustained fatal injuries. May his soul rest in peace and his family is consoled and comforted. The sequence of events leading to the collision. Both trains departed Pretoria station on schedule at 6 o'clock and 6:15 respectively, and were en route to Park Station in Johannesburg. At approximately 7:06, Metro Plus Express train 0600 came to a standstill in front of signal number DN11 at the Denver station. The driver of Metro Plus Express train 0600 confirmed that he stopped at signal DN11 as a result of his inability to clearly see the aspect of signal, which is DN11. After stopping, the driver proceeded to contact the local George Koch Centralized Traffic Control Office to request a directive or authorization to proceed. Metro Plus Express train number 0600 was protected by signal DN2, which at the time of the accident was displaying a danger/red aspect. Signal DN1, which precedes signal DN2, was displaying a yellow aspect, which served as a caution to the driver of the Business Express train 1602 to take certain actions from a train handling point of view in order to stop at the following signal, should that signal display a danger aspect. Whilst in the process of contacting Josh Koch, CTC, Business Express Train 1602, which had been proceeding in the same directions as Metro Plus Express 0600, passed a signal displaying a danger aspect and collided with rear end of Metro Plus Express Train 0600. With regard to the findings of the Board of Inquiry, the findings of the investigations are systemic and include the following: issues of lack of maintenance, ineffective communication, ineffective human factors management, ineffective allocation of capital funding, and I would also go on to the recommendations that the BOI has made. They recommend that a competent person, contractor, must be appointed to assist with the immediate maintenance and repairs of the existing trunk radio system and related equipment. PRASA must, as a matter of urgency, provide a separate power supply backup to the VoIP telephone system and trunk radio system, or couple this system to the existing backup supply at all CTCs. Risk assessments must be done on all searchlight signals. These signals must be replaced with tree aspect signals or other resourceful signals. PRASA must effectively prioritize the implementation of the automated train protection system to avoid human errors, which cause incidences of this nature. And PRASA must review the maintenance expenditure budget in light of the fact that the infrastructure is old and needs high maintenance. Ladies and gentlemen, you would know that the Department of Transport is the shareholder department and provides oversight on PRASA. I, as the Minister of Transport, am the sole shareholder on behalf of government of PRASA in terms of the provisions of the Legal Succession Act to the South African Transport Services Act of 1989, the Public Finance Management Act, and the Treasury Regulations provides the Department of Transport with an adequate platform to promote the objectives of good financial management in order to maximize service delivery through efficient and effective use of limited financial resources. In this instance, I annually enter into a shareholders' compact with the Board of PRASA as the accounting authority for PRASA, based on a 3-year corporate plan that is approved by Parliament. The shareholders' compact entered into contains quarterly and annual operational and capital performance targets that should be achieved by PRASA by the end of each quarter and by the end of the financial year. The Department of Transport strictly oversees the progress against each key performance indicator, and in terms of effecting the recommendations made by this Board of Inquiry, we will be reviewing the key objectives and key performance targets with a view of formulating measures that should be taken to ensure the implementation of the recommendations and that they are realized within the timeframes directed by the RSR. Ladies and gentlemen, PRASA is involved in the modernization program, and we are very proud of this intervention that they are making. The rail commuter service in South Africa, we all acknowledge, needs a complete overhaul to ensure a safe and efficient passenger experience. PRASA has initiated a program to transform and modernize passenger railways in South Africa. In this instance, PRASA will be investing approximately 172 billion rand over a period of 10 years, which have already commenced in the 2013-14 financial year. The key capital investment programs that forms part of the modernization includes the acquisition of 3,600 new coaches. The first test and second test train are at Volmaten Depot and is currently undergoing testing. In actual fact, the testing started last week, Monday. The first operational train is expected to arrive for testing at Volmaten Depot by the end of March 2016 and is targeted for commercial operation in October 2016. With regard to the design and construction of depots at Volmaten and Braamfontein in Gauteng, Salt River and Western Cape, Springfields and Durban Yard in KZN, we believe that they will be fully functional, modern maintenance depots to support and service the new trains. Station improvements, the 135 stations planned for modernization as part of changing commuter experience and commercialization. The network improvement, the upgrade of line speeds for PRASA network to 120 kilometers per hour or 660 kilometers per hour for express trains on priority lines where possible. The replacement of rails, turnouts, sleepers, drainage, upgrading the ballast screening, refurbish rails via grinding, realignment of track and capacity improvements, upgrade of OHTE and traction stop stations. With regard to signal systems upgrades, this is in progress in Gauteng, the Western Cape, and KZN regions. Ladies and gentlemen, this modernization program is the catalyst for transformation of Metrorail and supports PRASA's efforts to position passenger rail as a backbone of South Africa's public transport system. This is the beginning of the rollout of a modern passenger rail transport system designed to achieve a number of key objectives, such as the delivery of safe, quality services to the commuting public, the revitalization of South Africa's rail engineering industry through local manufacturing, and ensuring local content as part of government's industrial policy action plan. Action Plan 2, employment creation and skills development, as well as broad-based Black economic empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. We shall now proceed with the briefing by allowing members of the media, both here and in Cape Town, to raise questions on the statement by the Minister. Noting that the chairperson of the investigating team is here and the CEO of the RSR together with the Minister. So as we normally do, please, we'll note 5 questions. You'll tell us your name and the organization that you represent. Thank you very much. And shall we check with the guys in Cape Town, if ever there are as well questions that side, so that we can accommodate them as well. Thank you very much. Ma'am, you'll be the first, the second, the third. Okay. We have 3 questions that will take at the moment. Thank you very much. We shall proceed in that order.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning. Amanda Watson from The Citizen. To the panel, according to the report on the Denver crash, it seems as if budget spending is all over the place. Budgets are not being met. Actual spending is completely out of whack with what it was budgeted for. There's not enough money in the program. Most of the budget for PRASA is taken up by salaries, so leaving nothing for maintenance, material and operating expenses. Is the Department of Transport going to look into this and maybe implement stricter financial controls?
Second question.
Good morning, Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. Having read the report, it starts off saying the process that this Board of Inquiry went through and some of the difficulties it experienced, such as PRASA officials reluctant to arrange and confirm attendance for interviews with the board, senior PRASA officials who just didn't pitch up at the hearings. And then, of course, we get a history of previous incidents that were investigated, recommendations were made, but these recommendations were just simply not implemented. Now, we've also got the case of the driver who was, by the findings of it, she was speeding. So the question that I'm coming to is, and Minister, you talk about this wonderful 178 billion rand expenditure, but you can throw as much money as you want at the system. If you've got the same people who are not being held accountable for not coming to meetings, to not assisting investigations, to not implementing recommendations, absolutely nothing is going to change. So what are we hearing from PRASA and your office on the issue of accountability? Are these people going to be taken to task? Are they going to be criminally held liable? Are they going to be pushed out? And what value are these people to the system if they just simply ignore recommendations? Thank you.
That question?
Good day, Sipho Sturman from SABC. Minister, thank you for the detailed report, but I would just kindly request that perhaps if you can just simplify for us in these terms of what actually went wrong in the Denver incident, who is to blame, and what's going to happen to those people that to be blamed. We understand you just went through the report, but if you can just keep it for us in a very simplified version so we can have a clear, sharp understanding of the matter. And, excuse me. And two, you speak of 299 incidents that resulted to people, 299 dead in accidents. If you can just mention, is this the current financial year as in 2015, 2016 financial year, or is it since beginning of this year as in January till now? So if you can just clarify that for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister?
Thank you very much. I think the chair of the board of inquiry is here, as well as the CEO, but it will also be important for the PRASA or what is this? Yeah, PRASA Rail to be able to respond to some of the areas. But I also want to say that it is important that you realize that PRASA is receiving this particular report now. They are going to interrogate this report. They are going to be able to engage with the RSR with regard to the findings, but also as a department, like I've indicated, we are going to be able to look into the compact or the shareholder compact on the areas that we need to strengthen, especially in this coming financial year, and make it possible that as a department also and as a ministry, we focus in the key areas that has been identified. But I also want to come to the point that was raised by you. I would believe that it is important, will allow for the simplification of the report to indicate to you what exactly happened, but I would believe that you also have the copy of the report. The issue that is being raised by Eyewitness News, you would remember that there has been a process of engagement, and the Board of Inquiry gives what they actually, before arriving at the particular findings, happened. And I would want to indicate to you, if PRASA was 100% not available to answer the questions, we wouldn't be sitting here today having a report. And I think it is important to note that there could have been, in the beginning, the particular challenges. This accident happened in a regional area, and you would know there are particular protocols in place in government. The CEO of RSR did give me an indication that at the time, the independent Board of Inquiry alerted them to the inavailability or unavailability of the PRASA senior management to account for some of these activities. He then engaged with the senior managers in PRASA through the group's CEO, and subsequently got the particular officials to participate. I just wanted to clarify that. This was an independent Board of Inquiry, and did it necessarily couldn't, what do I want to say? Yeah, let me leave it at that. The issue of previous recommendations, and I think the RSR CEO and the Board of Inquiry will speak to that, but I would also want to allow Sengwa from PRASA Rail to come to the fore so that he can be able to answer to some of the questions that are raised. The CEO would also speak to the history of the rail safety report that we have given. But I also want to hasten to indicate to South Africans and to the media here today that on the day this crash happened, the Cabinet of the Republic of South Africa took a decision that we need, as a government, led by the Department of Transport, to produce a public transport passenger safety strategy. You'd remember that there's been a lot of focus on road safety, And it is important that we have an integrated strategy that focuses on public transport passenger services. That is something that we're still working on, and you would probably find it in our plan into the 2016-17 financial year. It is one of those things that we will be attending to. On the issue of accountability, you would have heard our indications that through the shareholder compact, we are going to demand quarterly reports, but we are also going to demand to make it possible that we either review the compact to strengthen the areas that we might have lacked proper oversight over, to make it possible that we can infuse that accountability levels. But I want to say to you, the reason why we coupled this press report or the tabling of this report with the modernization program is an indication to South Africans, as well as to yourselves as ladies and gentlemen of the media, who are our hands and feet to inform and educate the public on what is being done to make it possible that the old rolling stock and the infrastructure can be refurbished whilst we are building this 3,600 trains. We gave an indication, and I would invite you to join Sipostoli to go and see what is happening at Volmaten with the testing of the new trains, and also to be able to see what is happening with the 20 trains as they get delivered over the different time frames that we have set ourselves for this financial year, but also for the next financial year. There's a lot of work that is going into also dealing with improving and modernizing signaling. Also, at the same time, you would understand modernization of the infrastructure does not also end there. And that is why on the 4th, when we turned the sword for the factory, we also spoke about the academy that will be built next to the factory in Danata in Niger, which is going to be looking at training and retraining. But also you would know that as an employer, consistently, PRASA is retraining and keeping their operators up to standard and up to date. That is why we believe that since the crash, for that particular network to be operating right now, there's been a lot of intervention that PRASA through the rail branch has done. So Msengwa would be able to speak to the points of what they have been able to do since the crash happened and up to date, because the report is coming up today, but the service is running as we speak, because there has been intervention from the side of PRASA to make it possible that the work continues. But also remember, I gave an indication that the train driver is still recuperating. And it is important that as South Africans, we need to be very sensitive to the fact that she is still undergoing recuperation. But also understand, I'm now speaking from understanding how those particular train systems operate. The express train is a train that necessarily and ordinarily doesn't stop at stations. And that is why it is called the Business Express. So it is important that we take note of that aspect, that there could have been some of those challenges of not expecting a train to be in the tracks. And I'm speaking from this point, understanding what happened, and when we went there to see what actually happened, we could understand some of the challenges that were experienced. But we're saying it is important that we try and create a situation where this particular type of crashes are avoidable. In the history of PRASA, I think the RSR can speak whether there has been this type of train crashes in the short period and what has been done, because it is important that you look at that crash in relation to the other crashes. And that is why it was important for us to look at the total picture on what could be done to avoid this type of situation.
Thank you. May I give to the chairperson of the investigating team? Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I've already been introduced, my name is Baiteng Rangata. I'm from FM Maponya Tennis in Pretoria, and I'm the chair of the board. I'm not going to try and answer all the questions, but I'll try. In particular, a gentleman from eNews has asked as to the cooperation that we have received as a board. I'd like to echo what the minister has said. Yes, it was difficult when we started. This is a lengthy process. It was a shocking accident. Everybody is running around the show. And also, as already been said, it's a process. We have had a first round of consultations where all the people on operations, including your section managers, were called to the hearings. And I must say, yes, it was difficult at the beginning. When you start any process, you anticipate these kind of problems. We set a second round of consultations with senior management. It was said not to have a turnaround as it was expected. But I must say that with the intervention of the CEO, magic happened, and all our seniors management, I was told that for the first that we are blessed with all the regional provincial managers, and I must say that it was quite fruitful from those engagements. So to answer your question, it was a process. It was difficult at the beginning. It eventually unfolded, and we had a cooperation. That's why we're sitting here today, and that's why we were provided with information. The gentleman in front, you're asking about a shortened version of what happened. I think we need to be very careful. It is correct, the driver of the Business Express is still in a very difficult position. We haven't had the opportunity to speak to her. I understand she's still going through some rehabilitation treatment. I don't want to go much into it. She hasn't been in a position to engage on the incident itself, but from the report it's very clear it's a rear-ender collision, which might have, it's got its own underlying processes, which we can only anticipate, but it's very clear that there was a passing of a red signal which landed in the collision from the rear of the Metro Plus Express. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Poyo?
I think, just to clarify as well, I think one question was about who is to blame. I think our investigations, especially the Board of Inquiries, we don't apportion blame. It is very important that is well understood. The reason for Board of Inquiries is to get to the underlying causes so that we're able to rectify those issues moving forward. And I think that's an underlying issue that is well understood. We don't apportion blame in relation to our inquiries. We do send our recommendations to the operator in question and obviously expect them to provide us with a strategy or how they're going to rectify. But I just wanted to clarify that we don't apportion any blame in relation to our investigations that we move forward. The other question I think that was raised was the issue of the 299. Now that is up to Q3 of the 2015-16 financial year fatalities, from 1st of April to end of December. Now, if you look at last year, I think there's copies that are sent to the media houses. We've had, obviously, fatalities of 410 up to end of March, if you look at the entire year. We are anticipating, but we can't say that now until end of March, that there will be a reduction in that, which obviously shows us that our interventions and also interventions of the operator that they have put in place have resulted in that particular reduction. So that is something that we just needed. And obviously at the end of March, there will be a full information in relation to the entire year and comparatively compare the year-on-year figures from the previous years in relation to that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Msengov?
Just on this one, I think the RSRCO must also indicate that in the figures that they have given, there is also people who you call commonly Iznyok. People who actually get electrocuted or get killed by the trains because they found themselves at the wrong place, because it is not supposed to be their particular space. We have also found in the hospitals many people who would want to claim that the rail services is responsible for their situation when they themselves were actually transgressing. We have got several cases of that nature in the Western Cape, several cases of that nature in KZN and here in Gauteng. We want the media to help us to educate the public. Where you see a track, know that there is a train. It is important that people understand that they shouldn't cross where they are not supposed to cross. But we also have people wanting to beat trains as motorists. The things they do on the road, they also do against the trains. And one thing about a train, it doesn't stop for anything. And I think it is important that you understand that. And at another stage, the RSR would elaborate more on the rail safety report, because it is important that the media help us to be able to educate the public about rail safety. Mr. Msemo.
Thank you, Minister. Just a quick response on the issue of accountability for safety. I just want to assure members of the public that we take a zero tolerance to non-accountability to safety. There's a lot of employees who have been fired for various incidences as a result of transgression of safety procedures and policies, because we can't risk to place people's life at danger. And we do not act. And I must say that in terms of the concerns that the RSR has raised, as they've indicated, is that there were initial teething problems at the initial stage, but when the matter was brought to my attention, I think myself and the CEO of the RSR, we made sure that all the managers that were required were made available to assist the Board of Inquiry. But of course, I think what is important as well is that the recommendations of this Board of Inquiry, we're still going to process them. And where action has got to be taken, it will definitely have to be taken. So this report, in fact, will assist us in terms of putting in place corrective measures. So from an accountability point of view, I can assure you there are even very specific delegations, right from the Group CEO, myself, the infrastructure head, the regional managers, and the various people who are assigned very specific tasks from a safety point of view. So from an accountability point of view, we do have a robust system, and it is spelled out even in our safety management system. On the interventions that have been made, I think what is very key is that one of the issues that were raised in the Board of Inquiry, and I think I must just emphasize that we are still studying the report, but there were immediate interventions that were put in place as a result of our own internal Board of Inquiry. Remember, we also conduct our own internal Board of Inquiry, and to some extent, some of the conclusions that the RSR has determined are similar pretty much to the conclusions that we've determined. For instance, in relation to the issues of speed, in relation to the issue of the signal past the danger. And of course, some of the underlying factors such as not having backup power supply, which is something that we've put in place, but also in terms of the signal aspect, the clarity of the signal aspects. We are currently rolling out LED lights in all our signaling installations, and we've done that in Durban, we're doing it in Cape Town, and we are also doing it here in Gauteng. And also, I think very importantly, on the trunking radio system, yes, there are very specific challenges. The RSR has raised the issue, but we have jointly formed a task team to address the very specific challenges around the trunking radio system. But over and above that, there is a GSMR system that is being rolled out, which is new technology. Of course, it is not yet in place. It is part of a program, our modernization program, and it's addressing the very specific challenges around telecommunications. As you know, with our trunking radio, we also don't own the network in Gauteng. It is owned by somebody else, and there are very specific challenges around that. So We are working, we take seriously the recommendations of the Board of Inquiry, both our Board of Inquiry as well as the Railway Safety Regulator. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Msengwa. Are there any further questions? Babalo, do we have an indication of questions in Cape Town? Not yet.
Yes, we do have questions in Cape Town.
Okay. You can proceed, sir. Your name and the organization you're representing, please.
Good morning, Minister. Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Just on reports and recommendations, the Public Protector released a report last month. You said you're going to interrogate its findings vigorously. Could you tell us now, in the light of this report, what action you're going to take on the Public Protector's report? And then as part of your modernization was the purchase of locomotives from Spain. Could you give us an update on what's happening there, please? Thank you.
That will be all for now. Back to Pretoria.
Yes, sir.
Karabongwepe from News 24. In the report, it says the train driver of Metro Plus Express train 060 was not tested for substance abuse before the beginning of his shift as per procedural requirements. Was that done afterwards, and what was the result?
Thank you. Any further questions here? Yes, sir. And you'll be next at the back.
Good day, everyone. My name is Johnny Sai. I'm with African News Agency in Pretoria. I just want to ask to the minister, with the recommendations and the findings that were made, would she say in uncertain terms that it's safe for the millions of people who rely on trains, the Metrorail trains? Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, at the back.
Sipo Masomboga for the Times newspaper. Just one question from me. The vacancies that are mentioned in the report, the technicians, maintenance and operational personnel, these are key personnel. Can Prasa tell us why these vacancies are not filled? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Sipo Stilman, SABC again. The report here on page 13 does say that, the accident can be attributed to human error. So now, the 240 injured people, is there any sort of compensation you've got for them that were involved in this? You mentioned that you're engaging with them, but what kind of engagement is this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now give to the panel for responses before we come back to you. Thank you.
The question from Cape Town about the public protector and the issue of the locomotives. I just want to indicate that I'm sure he is aware that the public protector made particular recommendations for remedial action by the minister and by the board. And since we received the report, I engaged with the board in terms of the remedial actions that needs to be taken. The board has instituted an investigation into the issues that they are dealing with. And as part of their reporting system, and maybe to hasten to indicate that at the same time of the release of the Public Protector's report, we engaged with the Auditor General's report and we combined the recommendations of aspects of the Public Protector's report on the recommendations that came from the AG. You'd remember that on the 1st of August last year, I requested the AG to do a forensic audit. The AG then came back to say there is, as part of the remedial action, recommendations by the Public Protector that the National Treasury, through the Chief Procurement Officer, do some of the investigations. And there was an agreement that we combine the investigations. As we speak, the investigations are still ongoing, and I would want to indicate that when the report of the investigations are ready, you would know that aspects of them are being tabled in Parliament through the different reporting lines, including the process of the SCOPA, which is the Select Committee on Procurement. What is SCOPA, Kanda? Public accounts. Yes, so it is important that we allow for those particular processes. You would also know that with regard to the one of the locomotives, PRASA has gone the legal route, and that matter is still ongoing. So we're waiting on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shall we give to RSR for clarities.
I'll
No,
take.
before you go on,
Sorry, Minister.
the question is the service safe? And I want to say that if you look at the state of rail safety report, which I said the CEO of RSR must be able to elaborate more about it now that we have given an indication of what happened since the beginning of the financial year and up until the end of December with regard to the challenges of rail safety. And also where you would have actually realized that the bulk of the numbers of people who either died in the rail accidents are not necessarily those people who were in the trains. That can safely tell you that we are running a safe operation. But we need the cooperation of the passengers. People must stop hanging onto the train and hanging outside of the train, surfing the trains, or catching the train whilst the train is running. They must stop opening the doors of the train whilst the train is running. They must also understand that they must wait till the train has stopped to be able to get into the trains. Once people understand that, the type of fatalities that we have would not necessarily emerge. But as I indicate, the fatalities were more people getting into the rail space as opposed to people being in the train. And I would want us to understand the safety of the services in that context and appeal to the passengers and commuters in particular to make sure that they enhance their own safety, enhance the safety of others. But I also want to appeal to Metrorail and PRASA to continuously do passenger rail safety briefings, because it is important for them to understand. They have a cell phone system, an SMS system. They also have the notice boards. They also need to be able to make sure that they communicate. And I'm happy to indicate that the modernized trains would have the opportunity or ability of the driver interfacing or speaking to the passengers directly. And that for us is further enhancing safety. But I want to say to South Africans, the services that our passenger rail agencies through Metrorail and Shosholoza Mail is running is safe.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the issue of the alcohol testing, it is indeed a concern that was picked that the driver of the Metro Plus was not tested on commencing his shift. And that is very clear from the report. The question as to whether that was done after the incident cannot be answered because we could not get an answer to that. And I think it must also be put very clear that the driver of the Metro Plus is no longer in the employ of PRASA. So we have managed to consult with him, and you can understand that when somebody is no longer in the employ, you can get that much. And it was confirmed that in the morning when he started the shift, the testing was not done. Okay.
Thank you, CEO.
If I may, just to echo what the minister has said around the issue of how safe are our trains. We publish a state of safety report annually, which shares what is the state of safety of our railway system. And I want to confirm that we look at areas of focus. But most importantly, we've been seeing a trend, a decreasing trend, in mainly some of the areas of occurrences, major injuries, plus also fatalities, people that are actually died within the system. As the minister has mentioned, it is important to note that more than 80% of the fatalities on the system are due to people that interface with the system without, where they're not supposed to be there, which is what we call people strike by trains. People that cross the railway system, and not people that are on board a train. And that's not people that will actually get mostly serious injuries or fatalities. And I think it's important to contextualize. We technically, in last year, in the 14-15 report, we issued our report, and there were more than 410 people that were fatally injured that were struck by trains, which means they were not on board the train, but the train hit them as they were crossing the particular train illegally, what we call trespassers. But I think the issue needs to be understood. That's mostly the people that are injured within the railway system and that are fatally injured in the railway system in terms of our categories that we actually focus on.
Thank you very much. Prasa?
Okay, thanks. Let me just clarify one issue. Substance abuse testing is compulsory, it's a non-negotiable. So when you start a shift, you've got to be tested. So if an employee has not been tested, it's a transgression and it will be handled as such. So I just want to clarify that. And in terms of the findings, the driver of the other train, it was confirmed that the driver was tested. Two, I think there was an issue on the numbers in terms of the maintenance. I just want to emphasize the point. Maintenance, it's insourced at PRASA, so the bulk of the cost is carried through your labor cost. And I can just make one example. If you take your car for service at Toyota, and even if it's just simple oil service, the bulk of the cost would be on labor. So we're carrying that cost internally, but also there's a capital portion as well. Remember, the asset has reached the end of its design life, and the interventions that you've got to make are capital in nature. And of course, it is not reflected there, but the reality is we've got what we call the capital intervention program, which we set aside on the infrastructure and rolling stock side, and we're spending on the infrastructure side, we're spending in the region of around 450 million, and on the rolling stock side, we spend just over 300 million. So this has got to do also with the state of the asset, because you've got to extend its life, and what it requires now is your capital intervention, and which is what we are currently doing. Thanks.
Thank you. I noted one hand, Minister.
Okay, you can continue.
All right. I noted one hand here in Pretoria. In Cape Town, please give us an indication if there are still further questions, because we are about to conclude our briefing.
There are no further questions in Cape Town.
Thank you very much.
Okay. My name is Zikwana Chona from eNCA. My first question, I think my colleague there from the SABC touched on it. The 240 that were injured, how's the claim process going? How much of the money that was set aside to assist them that has been spent? And the issue of driver behavior, I see it's been touched on here on page 11. Can we just get some a word from PRASA with regards to driver behavior? Are they going to touch on it more after this incident?
Okay. Are there any further questions? This is our last round of questions. Please, if you can ask. Yes, sir.
Just to repeat my question, why are the vacancies not filled?
No. Okay. Any further question? Yes, sir. This is the last hand.
Karabo again. So I just need to understand, because the driver is no longer in the employ of PRASA, does that mean we will never know if that person was intoxicated or not?
Thank you. Should we hand over to PRASA, Minister? Or you want to?
Before PRASA responds, I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to the media working together with PRASA and the rail section of PRASA to do an open day where Msengwa and team can reveal the challenges we have with regard to vandalism of the property of PRASA, which is the property in terms of infrastructure, in terms of signaling systems, including cable theft, and the theft generally of the property of PRASA. When you steal from PRASA, when you steal from Metrorail, from Shosholoza Mail, you are stealing from the public, you are stealing from the passengers, you are actually endangering the lives of the people of South Africa. So it is an appeal on my part that we also educate, over and above what PRASA and RSR and Transnet is doing, the public about encroachment on the rail reserve. There is particular areas where we have challenges, where people have illegally occupied the land that is actually set aside for the rail reserve. But we also know that PRASA will be spending 1 billion rand over the MTS, which is next 3 years, in protecting the rail reserve through a fencing program. But we also want to appeal to our people, stop stealing the fence that separates people from this big machine called trains. Because it is when you steal that fence, you know you're actually endangering the lives of our people. We also know that RSR is developing regulations with regard to protecting the rail reserve. And PRASA will be starting with the main stations, but we know the train move throughout South Africa. There is particular demarcated areas for the rail services. Don't encroach on it. We are appealing to communities, in particular municipalities, which are having rail networks passing through the communities. Make sure that the community understand their relationship with regard to the trains. Because like we always say, where there is a track, there is a train. People tend to say the train was last 2 days ago or 3 days ago. But we know that there's a particular challenge with regard to the protection of the rail reserve. Over to you, Ntatemsem.
Thank you, Minister. Let me start with the driver behavior studies. I think we agree with the RSR that it's a very important intervention. And of course, I think that doesn't mean that there's absence of any type of psychological test for the drivers. As we speak, we do have the VTS test. And of course, we are reviewing that in terms of the adequacy thereof. And of course, we've agreed now, we've got a project that we are undertaking with the University of Wits and Transnet, specifically on the driver behavior studies. Yes, there were delays, and of course, those delays had to do with the issue of costs, but we're quite happy. We had prioritized it, and at the moment, we've even submitted to the Railway Safety Regulator our program in relation to the driver behavior studies. In relation to the claims, PRASA did put aside 20 million for the claims on a no-fault basis, and I think just on top of my head, just close to around 280 people were paid out as a result of that. In terms of the skills, of course, it is true, and I think that we do not have sufficient capacity. The reality at this stage is that we've been losing more skills than recruiting. We've lost a lot of skills to our sister company, Gautrain. It is much more attractive to work in that environment. What the minister just said, I think, and I need to emphasize this point, that you've got our technical people. Because of the open nature of our network, it can be accessed at any point by anybody. The bulk of the interventions by maintenance personnel is actually repair work, because cables are stolen, various components on the rail network are being stolen. And I think it is very stressful to work in an environment like that. But the minister has indicated that there is currently a fencing project that is underway. In fact, for the medium term, we've put aside 1 billion just to address the fencing problem, because it's got huge operational implications from a safety point of view, but also from the efficient operation of the trains. So yes, we have lost the skills, but what we have done to compensate for that, because we are modernizing as well, we've done a very in-depth analysis in terms of what are the skills that you would require into the future. Because as you modernize, the level of requirement in terms of the skill sets would not be the same as currently we have. Yes, currently the system requires very high maintenance, it requires a lot of resources, but we embarked on a program to get ad hoc support from the various private companies to assist us with maintenance. That is still not sufficient, but it's a program that we are running at the moment, and we have finally, just on the issue of the skills, we have done a very detailed analysis in terms of the maintenance activities, the inputs that are required, as well as the resourcing thereof. Firstly, in terms of the current system that we are running, which is an old system that has reached the end of its design life, but also for the future requirements.
Thank you very much to the members of the panel and yourselves, ladies and gentlemen from the media and colleagues. Just to take the conversation further, I would like to give you the numbers of people to contact from the RSR and PRASA in terms of further detail to the statement by the Minister. With the RSR, you can consult Baba Alwa at 081 033 0508. I repeat, 081 033 0508. And for PRASA, you can consult Mr. Siposi Tole at 083 299 550, 083 299 550. Thank you very much for your participation and contributions, also in Cape Town. Thank you. This brings us to the end of our media briefing for today, and further engagements can be entered into with the relevant people that you might want to ask further clarity questions. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm informed that there are some refreshments as we go out. Please help yourselves before you leave. Thank you.